What's up, everybody? It is Wrestling Inc. across the channels, YouTube, Twitch, Facebook, Periscope. We are live. I am Justin LaBar here in Pittsburgh, site of AEW Dynamite tonight. And over on the West Coast, my partner in crime from Forbes.com, he is Alfred Konuwa. Alfred, how are you?
Amazing, and for reasons I will not confirm or deny, that intro slaps on 420. Let me tell you.
Oh, boy. Yes, it is April 20th. This is the Wrestling Inc. podcast, and it is brought to you by HelloFresh. Spring has sprung, and the less time you spend in the kitchen, the better. That's why some of HelloFresh's delicious restaurant-quality meals come together in just 20 minutes. That's right. Get 16 free meals plus 3 gifts with the code INC16. That's INC16 at HelloFresh.com/INC16. It is April 20th, 420. Puff it, sip it, do what you got to do. You know what that means. And we got a lot to talk about, Alfred. A very busy Dynamite. It was very heavy on paper going into it, and quite a lot coming out of it. Whether it lived up to expectation, what have you, we'll get into all of it. But again, a lot of news and noteworthy things. And there's also quite a lot to talk about on the headlines and in the wrestling world. Let's start with the innuendo, with the references. April 20th, of course, bringing the annual conversation that it does with where we are as a society, with what's legal, what's not in the world of marijuana, and backstage talk on the marijuana use in WWE is a story that's coming and being sourced from Fightful Select. As they are reporting that several WWE superstars are free to celebrate without worries, as their superstars going, talking to Fightful Select, saying that they have not been suspended or fined for marijuana use in years. This is a progressive change from the policy that is still technically in writing and on the books, Alfred. But in the past, WWE would issue $2,500 fines for positive marijuana tests. Again, still it's in writing on the wellness policy on WWE's corporate website, but talent saying that the company's kind of really lax in not enforcing that. Are you surprised? And what do you and do you agree?
I do agree 100%, and I'm not too surprised. I mean, if you've watched the rise of Matt Riddle, they make very thinly veiled references toward him smoking weed, as they did with RVD in a different time. But I do feel like it is more celebrated than anything. I just think that had they had that same mentality, we wouldn't be seeing Matt Riddle as celebrated as he is, really kind of in that role. And also, I just think that WWE in a wrestling war, it could come down to decisions like that. Like, well, AEW, you're hearing stories about Tony Khan smoking with Big Swole. And if WWE is painted as a company that's really stringent on weed, a lot of these wrestlers are going to say, man, I don't want that, my name attached to that if I get in trouble. So, I have no problem with this. And I think this is also good PR for WWE, because if somebody was to get really punished for weed, then it becomes Twitter is going to bring up all the people who WWE, quote unquote, turn a blind eye to. Then Saudi Arabia references maybe come up and stuff like that. So it's a good decision, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I would agree. This is somewhat long overdue. Obviously, no matter where you, I'm not a, I'm not a, I'm not a marijuana guy, but it's legalized in so many states, and just what it's become. I think that the line that WWE has to walk, of course, is the fact that they are a public company, and so that's probably why we're still going to see it in writing. So they can always say, "Oh, look, it's in writing," but obviously, it's up to them of whether or not they're going to enforce it. And again, if anything, it's more of an inconvenience at this point. If you have these athletes and guys who want to use it, if it's something that, through all the travel, all the physicality, all the anxiety that goes on in that world and that life, if that little bit is something that helps them be a better performer and just a better, happier traveler and employee, is it worth finding them? Is it worth the hostility? Is it worth going beyond that and trying to suspend them and derailing your creative plans? No, I don't think so. And I think a lot would agree. So, this is an interesting story. I will be, again, I'll be curious to see as if this gains traction, if there's at all any pushback. Because you mentioned, they're a little bit more with Matt Riddle about it. That they have a new shirt that came out today. But, they still do aim for the PG and the sponsorship. So, how tolerant or not tolerant are their sponsors in terms of them, this news being out there? I don't know, but I think overall I do agree. This is
Yeah, and WWE does not have to be a champion for we. They don't have to advertise this, nor are they. This is just a story that came out. This could just be an internal philosophical idea that they have for their company and what they do believe in. But when it comes to public facing, it can just be like Disney. Everybody has, I'm sure these executives all have what they believe, but the brand stands for something entirely different.
And who knows? In 10 more years, I mean, again, I know you're in California, which is the progressive of all.
Oh yeah.
The way stores and legal fronts are popping up now, who knows? In 10 years from now, whoever the industry leader is in legalized distribution, and what could probably be majority, if not all, the states by that point, they could be sponsoring WrestleMania by that point. Right now WrestleMania is sponsored by Snickers. I don't put it past some major company. I don't put it past Amazon going into the space of overnight delivery if you're a Prime subscriber to have your weed, your weed alongside everything else. So I mean, I really think it's something to kind of watch. It's kind of something fun to joke about given the day, and it is news because it's it's long standing in the wrestling world, but yeah, very. I look at a company like AEW. I mean, they're a private company, so they don't even really have to answer. They don't even have to talk about it if they don't want to. I don't know what their policy is. I haven't heard of anything. I haven't heard of any testing, so I don't even think.
I've heard some stories from Big Swole, and I think their policy is smoke away.
Yeah.
The president might smoke with you. Which, hey, listen, that's my kind of policy. All right, weed is definitely legal in California. Shout out to Purple Echo.
Did I do that? Well, so maybe old TK. Sitting back, lighting one up, and hiring some IT folks. All right,
yes.
we're gonna puff pass, and we're gonna find those damn bots.
Yes.
That's what we're gonna do.
Let's go.
Tony was very active in the interview scene. We got 2 interviews we're gonna touch on here. The first being with TV Insider, as he now talks about his famous tweet a week or so ago, where he asserted that he has an independent study has found an army of anti-AEW bots are responsible for a lot of anti-AEW rhetoric. Well, he goes on to say that he has he's hired IT specialists basically to look into this. We will not rest until this is done.
We will not. This is the biggest announcement that was made all night. I don't care what anybody says. I kind of joked last week that this was going to be the announcement, that he is going to reveal the results of the study. This wasn't exactly that, but it was the next best thing. We got IT on the bots. To me, this is the biggest announcement of the day. I mean, we'll get into what they announced tonight, but this is what I was talking about. This already lived up and passed the hype for me personally. And I think this is also an elaborate way to bring in Mustafa Ali. Okay, we are going to have the hacker from WWE TV come in and reveal himself to be behind all these bots, and that's how we get this wrestling war to really kick in a high gear.
So let me give you this quote. This is a great quote here from this interview with TV Insider. This is from Tony Khan. He says, quote, and he's talking about the bots here, a lot of their engagement, their retweets, likes, people responding, and signal boosting for what they are saying, those are bots. You got a network of a few people with a lot of identities powered by a bunch of bots. I'm not making this up. I have hired IT experts that put together a much more sophisticated explanation than I'm capable of giving. It's a real thing, or I wouldn't have brought it up. I have a pretty good reputation in this business for honesty. Says a wrestling promoter.
Oh no, Tony. It's the lack of self-awareness for me. Anybody who says I'm not making this up, listen, maybe he's not, okay? There is probably some legitimacy to some of the things he's saying. The execution, the PR rollout, this should all have been done behind closed doors. Not only is he taking this to the streets on Twitter, now he's going on a whole crazy Twitter interview tour. I bet you he's wearing a tinfoil on his hat as he's speaking, because that's all I can picture when I hear, I'm not making this up.
If MTV still did Celebrity Deathmatch, there would be Tony Khan and Clay versus just a row of computer bots.
We gotta find these bots. I want bot merchandise. If Tony Khan is smart, he would make bot merchandise. If this is gonna be a whole thing, we need bot merchandise. I will buy it, and I will show up to AEW Dynamite in June wearing bot merchandise, with or without Shop AEW.
Bro, this is a layup for Dark Order. Oh. Things have gone cold, with Dark Order. They really, they obviously. They really had a hot year last year. A lot of it, paying tribute to Brody Lee. They've really cooled down. I mean, they go back to the roots. They started with being a cult and trying to recruit people. Have them be behind the information or the
Yes.
disinformation or the misinformation. That sounds. I think it's a layup. So
You know, I,
You say Mustafa Ali. I say it's Dark Order. You know.
I love that idea. Now my creative juices are flowing for reasons that I cannot confirm or deny. And I want you in the chat, send us your favorite super chats. Fantasy book these bots. Okay, best idea. We'll retweet it. Fantasy book these bots using super chats, 99 cents, dollar, whatever. We need to hear your best fantasy booking of these bots.
Yes, I agree with that. Let's get him in here. All right, so continuing the Tony Khan media tour, he also was on My Mom's Basement with Robbie Fox, that podcast. He talks about several things. A lot of it really, a lot of talk about Ring of Honor, and he talked about Ring of Honor distribution, and he notes talking to Warner Media about them, and on that topic, he says, "quote." You've seen many championships defended in AEW, and I think we will continue to see Ring of Honor champions in AEW. But also, I'm really excited to get Ring of Honor weekly television distribution and working on those details. I've had a lot of really exciting conversations with the people at Warner Media about the future of Ring of Honor, which I think everybody is really excited about. So, giving a little bit more information of what we've been speculating. Obviously, Ring of Honor had a huge show, Mania weekend, but he's eyeing to get them a TV spot and to have that brand weekly, in addition to what he's already doing with Dynamite and Rampage. So I gotta say, I'm a little bit surprised. I didn't necessarily know he's talking Warner Media now. That could, I mean, I am really excited to get Ring of Honor weekly television distribution. So he's not just talking about streaming. He's not just talking about OTT on demand. He's talking about TV, which I'm kind of surprised about because I didn't know necessarily in 2022 with the way the world's going that he would necessarily jump into that pool, but it sounds like he's trying.
Yeah, and the television aspect is the most surprising aspect. Every time he has an announcement, one of the long-standing speculations is that he's reached some type of streaming deal with HBO Max, which is major league in and of itself, but not necessarily television. This is the first I've ever heard of Warner Media doing any type of television with AEW and Tony Khan, let alone with ROH, which is another kicker. So we'll see how they reinvigorate this promotion. There's no history really for a promotion, quote unquote, dying, coming back from the dead and being better off because of it. I think, you see ECW, you see when they try to relaunch WCW, you see all the times they try to relaunch Impact/TNA. And once you get hit with that, the promotion had to go away for a while. It's dead, tag. It's next to impossible to do this. And Tony Khan has his own problems establishing AEW as a major league promotion. So we'll see how this ROH thing works, but this could really help.
Yeah, I mean, and again, the thing I wonder is ROH, obviously turned out a ton of talent with talent that are in AEW now, talent that have main evented WrestleManias. But it's like at the end of the day, ROH more so than what AEW is now, more so than pretty much almost any other, major company, was so niche. And so I don't yet know what the business like. There's nobody that's going to go to an ROH show that's not already going to an AEW show. Like I don't know. I think it makes him he looks like a huge babyface to the wrestling world. He looks like a huge babyface to the talent because he's providing another company more. He's providing another ring, another show or shows to have talent get paid and maybe even have, guys who are a little bit more wrestling centric and not as, sports entertainment centric and that fit the ROH mold. But so, yeah, you look like a babyface in the industry. And I guess if you have money to play with, good for the industry, but at the end of the day, it's still a business, and you still want to report profit. And I just don't know what the difference is between AEW and Ring of Honor in the sense of growing audience. That's kind of, I guess, where I'm really curious to see how this is going to play out.
Yeah, I mean, he seems very bullish on this, but I'm in the same boat you are in that I just think he's taking on too much with this, and I think for a company that still has a long way to go in AEW, I think it is way overly ambitious to think that he's going to create a similar effect with ROH, but we'll see.
But again, and for the workers, for the talent, and especially talent who, I mean, God, 2020 was horrendous for professional wrestlers that are just trying to break through. I mean, look, you're in WWE and you get released for the mass budget cuts. Sucks, but you've been making six figures. You got a little bit of money in the bank and you got a name value, whatever. But for the talent that are, just on that cusp of not being weekend warriors anymore, not having to work day jobs or what. Like 2020 was horrendous, right? And so it's good that Ring of Honor is that's happening, because now it opens up for another, potentially 40, 50 wrestlers potentially that now have another payday, another place to go that's owned by this billionaire. But again, from the bigger picture outside of that, I'm wondering where it's all going to land. So it's going to continue. What's going to be a fun year here in 2020. We're already in, we're already almost done April. And Cody Rhodes is on top of WWE, and it's a crazy world. All right, let's get into AEW Dynamite. They were here in Pittsburgh tonight. Obviously, I'm here with you, not at the arena, taking precedent here, but huge night in Pittsburgh. It was great. A lot of IWC wrestling talent. Obviously, Wardlow and Britt Baker, two of them, but a lot of talent current at IWC, playing security, playing other roles. So great to see them. If you were here in the Pittsburgh area, you might have saw some commercials. I want to give this cheap plug. Coming up April 30th at Rostraver Ice Gardens, just down the street. It is IWC Wrestling plus Northeast Wrestling. We're doing a huge show. Hardy Boys, Fandango, Eric Rowan, Thunder Rosa, my man Spencer Slade, Bill Collier, all going to be there, all having a meet and greet. So if you like pro wrestling here in the Pittsburgh area, April 30th, still a few tickets left, Rostraver Ice Garden. Got that out of the way. Let's kick it off. Dynamite starting off with CM Punk back in Pittsburgh wrestling versus Dustin Rhodes. CM Punk at 43, Dustin Rhodes at 53. These two guys out there, I hope I can move a little bit at 43 and 53 like they do. But this one, getting this is awesome chance, Alfred, and JR even noted it, not taking shortcuts, not going for the crazy high spots. It was a much more traditional pro wrestling match. Dustin, the knee bothering him, just a real traditional old school story here. Did look like I got a little serious towards the end, though. Punk goes to GTS Dustin Rhodes, and it looks like he just couldn't hoist him to propel him up to then hit him with a knee. He then just dropped down and basically hooked Dustin's legs, and that got the 1, 2, 3. And then Punk was really, really holding his left arm. Ref was even given a signal that might be interpreted as a legit injury, or at least, hey, we just called an audible. Don't know what to make of that, but overall, the crowd was really into this by these two veterans of 33 years for Dustin and Punk probably 20 something. So a real blast from the past to see CM Punk versus Goldust.
Yeah, very consistent. Dustin Rhodes, it's like if he was a baseball player, his batting average would be like 700, because it's like he doesn't have that many at-bats, but when he's on the plate, he hits like home runs and he doesn't really strike out, but only in specialty situations. And he's just had quietly one great match after another. Not good. It's like the Cody Rhodes match, the Bryan Danielson match, and I thought this was an excellent match in terms of CM Punk. I wouldn't be surprised if this was a planned finish, because CM Punk continues to shout out to Bret Hart, where he's wearing his gear, and then he did the SummerSlam 92 roll-up, made famous, which is a roll-up Bret Hart took from Bulldog. But, maybe he was just selling well. And I did like what came next in terms of CM Punk and Hangman Adam Page, because I think they needed this.
Yeah, real quick to the finish. That's a great call. He was wearing the Hart's colors, and I didn't even you're right, that is the finish of Bulldog. It's where just the drop down on your knees and hook the leg. So if he was, a tremendous job by everybody, because the way that he sold it, and then the way the ref even did, the refs don't get always into the signal. So they made a believer in me. It came off and looked, and they were struggling enough with body parts that I kind of balled into it. So if that's the case, bravo to all included, ref included. You're right. Punk then continuing the motion that he wants the title belt, and then Hangman Page and him have a stare down. Music goes off from it. They have a stare down on the top of the stage. Is this the title match you want? Obviously, we talked about it. I dared Tony Khan to have Adam Cole win it last week. That didn't happen. Is this the title match you want? And is this the guy for Punk to dethrone as champion?
Yes, it is now. I mean, I do like this idea. I didn't so much get excited about it on paper, but I needed to see this segment in terms of CM Punk and Hangman Adam Page facing off, and just seeing how the crowd reacted to it, which I do think is always going to influence your personal decision of whether or not this feels like a big match. And it did. It did to me. And the way they shot this, the way CM Punk seems like he was going to build up to some kind of face-off with Hangman or whoever the world champion is, because you figure week after week he's going to do that gesture. Finally, for Hangman to answer it, I think they've done a good job between CM Punk by himself teasing it and Hangman Adam Page finally coming in there. And Hangman's had a string of very, very excellent matches. He just doesn't feel like the biggest star on the show. But I am excited, and I do think it is a big match, CM Punk versus Hangman Adam Page.
Yeah, gotta believe that's probably gotta be probably what you figure is penciled in for Double or Nothing in May
Yeah.
at this point. We're at April, it's April 20th, Double or Nothing next month. So seems like that's where we're on pace for. They show early in the day Wardlow entering the Peterson Event Center, and he is stopped by security, and they are going to escort him all day long, and they're going to handcuff him all the way until he gets to the ring. Again, big shout out, a lot of great IWC wrestling talent portraying the security, and of course Wardlow. He's not bothered by this at all. Cool, calm, and collective is the big man, Mr. Mayhem, the man with war in his name. Wardlow, he's definitely a top round, first round draft pick, obviously in this business right now. And with the first pick in the NFL draft, Ballsackinville has decided to pick Manscaped to stock up their D. That's right, Manscaped, the leaders in below the waist grooming, have sponsored us to make sure you don't get booed out of the bedroom like Roger Goodell. Support us and head to manscaped.com and use the code. That's right. Go to manscaped.com and use that code WINC20 and you will get free shipping. Plus, you'll save 20%. Everyone was asking why combine athletes, they ran the 40-yard dash so fast this year. Well, a big reason is because the Lawnmower 4.0, this elite electric trimmer, I should say, now serves over 4 million men worldwide too right here. That's a lot of aerodynamic pants potatoes, if you know what I'm talking about. Because of their ceramic blade and skin safe technology, your nicks and snags will be reduced. After trimming, your package will look as big as the Seahawks got in return for Russell Wilson. Rumor is Kenny Pickett got trimmed up with Manscaped and is skyrocketing the draft boards. Small hands who? They'll talk about size with Kenny. I want you to look in the mirror. Do you see any nose or ear hairs? Well, we got to make sure we trim those babies. That's unacceptable. None of those dangling around. Look, fellas, ladies out there, they think long nose hair is a major turnoff. If you didn't know that, spoiler alert, major turnoff. Let's figure it out. Get it straight. The Weed Whacker nose and ear hair trimmer is your solution for that problem. Why not use the best tools for the job? Performance package also come with the anti-chafing performance boxer briefs, travel bag. I just used this past week. I love it. Crop preserver, anti-chafing ball deodorant, crop reviver is this, and there's a spray-on toner. They've also launched some of their amazing hygiene products, including the cologne, the body wash, the 2-in-1 shampoo, and the aluminum-free deodorant. So again, head over to manscaped.com and get 20% off plus the free shipping when you use the code WINC20. Again, definitely shaving off some time in the 40 by using Manscaped. A little bit lighter, a little more aerodynamic. Manscaped.com is the way to go, Alfred.
100%. And I'm going to need Manscaped to help trim this lead for the Chicago Bulls over my Milwaukee Bucks. These Bulls look tough. I've been saying it. Bulls look very tough, but I like the Bucks in 6.
Bucks and 6, huh?
Yes.
All
Bucks
right.
in 6.
Let's look at a super chat here. Mike D, Doink the Clown, Matt Bourne, 2023 Hall of Fame. I don't think we're ever going to see a Doink the Clown in the Hall of Fame because Doink is just one of those. Yeah, well, it's just one of those. Matt Bourne, obviously the original. Rest in peace, Matt Bourne. The Doink thing is one of those things. It'll be WrestleMania 55, and there'll be a Doink the Clown that shows up in a battle royal. It's one of those gimmicks that just forever can be portrayed and always has been forever portrayed. So I don't think they're ever going to put that character in the Hall of Fame.
But that doesn't mean it can't go into the Hall of Fame. I mean, we see the Edge went into the Hall of Fame and he's wrestling all over again. So I just think it'll be a funny visual where all these people are in their nice suits and then a clown comes to the stage to accept the Hall of Fame.
Well, I think it's like, if you put it in the Hall of Fame, it's like, who do you acknowledge? Like, who comes? Like, do you say you're putting Matt Bourne and then you have like his family? Like, no, it's like they like to still have like Steve Lombardi's not going to come out there and
that's what I was thinking. That would be my suggestion.
I think Ray Apollo was Doink number 2 after Matt Bourne. I mean, I think Doink's gonna be one of those. Sin Cara could have been that too, but I think they kind of shelved that. Sin Cara could have been another one where they could have had somebody portray Sin Cara for the next 30 years. Put the mask on your Sin Cara now.
They should induct Doink the Clown, and then that means anybody who's ever played Doink. So, I mean, you get the Brooklyn Brawler in there. Didn't Steve Kern play Doink the Clown one time?
I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
Pretty sure. All right. So you got your basketball. I got my Caps playing right now in Vegas.
Oh.
A lot going on. All right, back to Dynamite. All right, so we got a 6-man tag with some trios match here. We get the Blackpool Combat Club of Bryan Danielson, John Moxley, and Wheeler Yuta up against Dante Martin, Brock Anderson, and Lee Moriarty. And John Moxley, huge pop, as I heard, in Pittsburgh tonight. He hits the paradigm shift on Dante Martin. The BCC keeps on rolling.
They do keep on rolling. I will say Lee Moriarty was the most over man in this match because he is from Pittsburgh. And I was more excited during this match, during the Lee Moriarty and Dante Martin spots, which BCC did a good job setting them up and working with them in that more athletic style. So I thought this was a very exciting match. I think Wheeler Yuta has one of the biggest improvements in ring gear I think I've seen this year or in years, where he was wearing those kind of horrible tights with the sneakers before. Now he looks full on Ricky Steamboat. This is because he does remind me of Ricky Steamboat in that not the greatest promo, but he wrestles with enough charisma to overcome it. And I think that him dressing like Ricky Steamboat, these blood-stained tights, it looks excellent. I think it's a very big improvement.
Yeah, shout out to Bernie in DC, who's right there with you on the killer tights for
yes.
Yuta. Apparently, Issa got apparently our audience is all half in the bag. I guess Issa's watch along got everybody.
Happy 420 girl.
Well, I guess she was doing shots for certain milestones. Everybody's. I mean, that can only make us sound and look better. It can't get any worse, right? I mean,
yeah.
Issa's like our opener right now. She's like warming the audience.
So. Yeah. She's, yeah.
Well, in this case, just inebriating them.
Yeah. Butch.
All right. Backstage, we see Adam Cole with Red Dragon and the Young Bucks, and they're all realizing and owning up to their losses. None of them getting many wins right now. And Cole trying to keep them all together, saying we have to be the undisputed elite. And we're going to see them all in action next week as a unit, as a 5-man team. So we'll see what happens there. We'll get back to some more Red Dragon personnel here in a few moments. But this feels like, at least, that we are on the last tipping point of them pretending to try to even make undisputed elite work before it all just implodes and we head to the inevitable showdown. And of course, Adam Cole will be, in a cage suspended above them, and will have to, choose what lunch table he's going to sit at.
That'll be fun, and it could go either way. I think it skews toward him going with his buddies from NXT in the Undisputed Era, but they're essentially recreating the Bullet Club storyline amid this announcement of Bullet Club coming into AEW. So they're going to do the whole Bullet Club is fine thing before they implode.
Yes, let's talk about Bullet Club. Obviously, Bullet Club, a huge part of the New Japan Pro Wrestling scene. Tony Khan, big rumor of a big announcement, or a big, not rumor, but it was established and promoted. He had a big announcement to make. Tony Schiavone brings Tony Khan out to the stage. Tony Khan brings out the president of New Japan Pro Wrestling. They are then interrupted by Adam Cole, who's backstage, who talks about how he's a huge star in Japan, and if anybody's going to make this announcement, it's going to be him, because this announcement wouldn't even be happening if it wasn't for stars like him. And he announces what we had heard some rumors of, which is on June 26th in Chicago at the United Center. It is going to be an event called the Forbidden Door, a joint show between AEW and New Japan Pro Wrestling. Jay White also then interrupts that. Well, actually, he then gets introduced by Adam Cole. He comes out to the stage, makes his presence known, cuts a promo. Alfred, a lot to unpack here. This Forbidden Door joint show on American soil. Something I have to imagine that was probably wanted to be done for a while, but of course they got the pandemic, really probably delayed that. But now here we are. Give me your reaction to this. What does this mean?
It means a lot of people who already watch AEW are going to be very excited. Very similar to that ROH news we were talking about. This isn't an announcement that's really going to grow AEW, I don't think. It's more or less going to serve its audience, which there's nothing wrong with that. I think you mentioned before the pandemic, I really do think that, had this happened maybe in 2019, maybe a year into AEW, this would have felt like such a massive announcement. And while it is exciting, I do feel, in fact, know for a fact that New Japan's brand has really taken a hit here in the States with their restrictions on the pandemic, and how fans can't even really cheer there in New Japan. It's a completely different product from what it was pre-pandemic, and it's still kind of recovering from that. So listen, as a hardcore fan, I think a lot of people are going to be excited about that, but this, I don't think, is something that's going to grow the product.
Yeah, probably not going to be their biggest pay-per-view buy, right? Mm-hmm. This. I mean, it'll sell out. The live gate will be certainly of note. But yeah, probably not gonna be the biggest pay-per-view. You mentioned about growing the business. Yeah, again, I guess it's how do you measure that? I mean, this is the biggest joint show with the New Japan Pro Wrestling that's been done. Even bigger than what was done in the Garden several years ago with Ring of Honor. But yeah, I guess it goes back to kind of what I was saying earlier about Ring of Honor. It's like, are you bringing it? Are you bringing any new eyeballs? Is anybody going to come into this and then come out of it going, I've never watched Dynamite. I'm gonna start watching Dynamite now.
Yeah, I don't imagine it at all. I just think the people who are cheering here is just a subsection. You know, New Japan is such a niche product. It's not like all AEW fans watch New Japan. It is a subsection of a subsection. It's like not all pro wrestling fans watch AEW. Not all AEW fans watch New Japan. So now you're just drilling down. And I think if they do this correctly, I mean, the idea of some of these dream matches, CM Punk versus Okada, it's a headline that's going to get a lot of people's eyeballs, and it can be very exciting and really milking a small audience, but it could still make a big dent. It's just that they're going to need to book this thing correctly and use their TV to do so as well.
Yeah, and again, it's exciting for wrestling fans, and I have no problem with it. But I do think, things that Alfred just said, it brings up just fair points of, it's an expense. It is what it is. What's the end game going to be? Tina Miller, she said, that's for us wrestling nerds. LOL.
Absolutely.
I'm so excited. Yeah, it is, and nothing wrong. Again, nothing wrong with that. I mean, we've never seen to this level in the United States, New Japan working with an American company. So,
I need Ishii and Samoa Joe. I need that. After all those shots last week, I think it was 107 it ended up being. I need Ishii and Samoa Joe. I think that'd be fire.
All right. Well, speaking of your fantasy booking, Anthony, and our super chat. By the way, super chats. If you've put a super chat in, they'll get sent to us. We're just, again, if you haven't caught on, we will wait until we get to that point. I saw Clown, you said something earlier. I saw Sean Wiley. You got a bunch of questions. We will get to all of them in the right time. Anthony Martin for $1.99 says, how hard is that joint show going to be to book? That's, and that's a great question. And that's something I think that always kind of, that's always a thing whenever you have other territories working with each other is egos. Who wants to put who over?
Mm-hmm.
Because at the end of the day, once that joint show's done and everybody packs up, shakes hands, and goes their separate ways, they got to go back to their own territory. They got to go back to their own show. And if they just had their guy get beat, so that I think it's a great question. Is how are you going to book this?
Yeah, and that's the thing. Particularly the world title matches, or if there's a world champion in these matches, whoever the AEW champion is wrestling better not be somebody who you want to beat them, and vice versa. Whoever the IWGP champion is wrestling, even more so to that degree, because it's a lot more like a real sport in Japan. Whoever that IWGP champion is wrestling, it's probably going to go over on the Japan side.
Yeah. So a lot to watch. So again, that's going to be June 26th, United Center. So just over 2 months away. So that'll be certainly after Double or Nothing. That'll be the next milestone for them to build towards. So going to be, really wrestling in the U.S. really shaping up to be a wild summer.
Yeah.
Double or Nothing.
26 going to be a hot summer.
Double or Nothing coming up in May. And this show for them, this joint show, June 26th. And then WWE, eyes are on them they got 3 stadium shows in a row. Money in the Bank early July, followed by SummerSlam at end of July, both stadium, and then the stadium show over in Wales on Labor Day weekend, which will be presumably the same weekend as All Out. So it is going to be a crazy. And then actually for WWE, it could be, as I say this out loud, it might be 4 stadium shows in a row because they're going to go back to Saudi Arabia in October. So
no, it definitely will be. So yeah, it's all systems go. What a time to be alive.
Hell yes. All right. So big announcement there. So certainly a lot of the wrestling world buzzing about that. All right. Wardlow. It's time for his match here. Butcher comes out first. MJF's up in the skybox there, eating popcorn, or throwing popcorn rather, with Sean Spears. And he doesn't even want Wardlow to get music. So out comes Wardlow. No music, handcuffed with security flanking him. I got to say this, Alfred. I think on paper, I like the idea of, okay, MJF, he's stripping him of all dignity, no music. Let's let Wardlow come out almost to something that could be even louder than music, just an arena full of the Wardlow chants. But it didn't really come, and that's my guy. But it didn't come off as that. He got a pop when Justin Roberts announced him. But I would have, in hindsight, rather the energy of his music still hitting and that crowd popping. I didn't like the no music, no lights, no video board, him just coming out as a prisoner being unshackled. I didn't like it.
Yeah, I think they were going for the whole Jericho effect, where one of Jericho's most memorable entrances is when he was told, I believe by MJF, that he cannot have his music. And Jericho walked out to an a cappella version of his song. It was a great moment. I think they were trying to recreate that, where Wardlow would be walking out to the Wardlow Goldberg-like chants. And while the crowd did kind of chant for Wardlow, and you did hear them pick up, it's not like he was walking out to the entire arena chanting for him, which I think is what they expected.
Yeah, I mean, it didn't kill anything, but it's just a a critique, and I'm overly critical and protective of all this stuff. So with him, so that was that. But nonetheless, Warlow gets in there. He's got obviously the crowd behind him. The whole deal is, look, Butcher's a big dude. Wardlow is one of the they bill him as a big guy, and obviously he is put together as all hell. He is, but and we're gonna get to more of this for next week too. They're putting him in here with these guys that are as big, if not a little bit bigger than him, and like, well, why? Well, why take one of your big circus acts? Oh, this guy can spit fire. Oh well, this guy plays with fire too. Let's put him in this. No, don't put him on the same tent. No. But he is overpowering Butcher, which is fine. He ultimately ends up hitting 4 power bombs for the Powerbomb Symphony, and he wins. But I don't. They put him up against Butcher. He wins, and then I'm just going to jump forward to this. That we see MJF later backstage, pissed off, but he's got more money. He's got a deal. He needs to deal with this snake. He brings in Jake the Snake. Jake cuts a masterful promo about money's what matters, and diamond rings or whatever is for little boys. All because Jake, of course, is leading Lance Archer. Lance Archer's the next mercenary. And Lance Archer, who is legitimately 3 or 4 inches taller than Wardlow, and you will see that when they stand in the same ring with each other. Why? They got the biggest roster in North America, and why are we putting our biggest guys to stand side by side to the guy who's got the rocket ship up his ass in Wardlow? I don't understand that part.
I agree with them doing this. I'll say I think that it's a perfectly good idea for just a couple of reasons. One, I think Wardlow is more at this point than just the big guy attraction. I think they're really investing in him and creating the storyline that people now have an emotional connection to Wardlow. So it does tie into the story they're telling, that MJF is trying to find the biggest, baddest dudes to slay this beast. It's very Greek mythology-like, very Hercules-esque. And I will argue, Hulk Hogan in his prime was much bigger than Wardlow, and Hulk Hogan was a stickler for bring the big guy to the territory who's bigger than me. I'm going to slam the giant. I'm going to get over. We're going to sell a lot of tickets. That was Hulk Hogan's whole career as a babyface. He insists he would not, we've talked about this on the podcast, he would not wrestle Bret Hart. One of the reasons being, I'm way bigger than Bret Hart. These people aren't going to have sympathy for me. They're going to cheer for Bret Hart over me. Very smart guy in terms of booking himself to slay these giants. And I think that's what they're doing with Wardlow, is that he's slaying these giants. And I think it makes it more impressive the way they're trying to book Wardlow as the king of the giants.
And you're right. That's what it is. They're going to go through when they put together the big video package of when he finally has his match against MJF, and it's all the things he had to do to get through they're going to put, you're right, all the big guys he did. And you are right about that. I guess I don't know. I just feel like it would showcase him better if he could just be maybe the smaller guys. I don't know, but nonetheless,
it could be a good story if MJF started bringing in tag teams. Like, okay, fine, I'll have you fight 2 guys at once, and that could be a fun attraction.
Yeah, I mean, again, I'm happy to see the consistency. I mean, they obviously, this match with he and MJF, if it's Double or Nothing, I can't imagine they can draw this out to All Out in September. So I have to think Double or Nothing's where it's going to be. You talk about drawing money, something that gets lost in 2022, especially on the WWE side of things, where there's no more pay-per-view buy rates. It's all, behind a paywall of Peacock. This is the old school definition of drawing money. MJF and Wardlow are going to draw money when they finally, and probably it should be a cage. It should be MJF is locked in a space with Wardlow, and so I will give it that. Long term, big picture, it's all there. Part of me questions is like, all right, Wardlow he's the one big guy who you're consistently pushing. Lance Archer's not been consistent. Brian Cage he's on a milk carton. Butcher's here or there. They're big guy. Luchasaurus. So like Wardlow's their big guy. They've been consistent behind. So I don't know. I guess there's an argument, like you said, of slaying the big dragons. But I also just wonder, is that the way? Is that the way to go? I want to give a shout out to Jose for the super chat. No comment. Jose, let me look real quick. Did you send anything beyond that we missed? I don't see it, but thank you nonetheless for your support for us. Yeah, all right. We'll get some more super chats here in a few minutes. Let's get back to what's going on here. We got Kyle O'Reilly and Jungle Boy. Owen Hart Foundation qualifier match here. O'Reilly's going to get the win. This was a shocker to me, Alfred. O'Reilly's he's just in the backstage promo, and they're talking about how they're all down in the luck losing. So I could see him losing one more match here, and that just kind of all flows into where they're at. And Jungle Boy is, obviously one of their baby faces, one of their stars that they're behind. I was shocked that he lost this.
This tells me, especially after the match where Christian came out, I think their long-term plans is we're going to turn Christian heel, and him and Jungle Boy are going to have a program. And I think that intersects with Jungle Boy potentially having matches in this Owen Hart Invitational. Maybe double or nothing. The plan is Jungle Boy versus Christian. And if they're going to do that, they're not going to be able to put him in this tournament. But I was absolutely shocked. I think it's kind of a waste, actually, because nobody expects Kyle O'Reilly to win this tournament. This match didn't necessarily do it for me. I could tell they were doing fundamental professional wrestling, but a match that was easy to doze off if you were so inclined on 420. And I just didn't understand Jungle Boy being beat until Christian walked out, because I think that's the plan.
So this is when you had to attend to your business to refill.
Yeah, that purple oracle, kicks in around
purple. Speaking of refilling.
There you go.
There we go. That's a great sound. Yeah, the only thing I could think, you're right. The only thing I could think, because nobody believes Kyle O'Reilly's winning this. The only thing I could figure was like, all right, I guess as TK is doing his bracket, they figured, okay, well, we need a heel in this spot. We don't want to do a face versus face match, so we just need the heel and O'Reilly in this spot. So that's why they do. That's the only thing I can figure as to why that happened. Nice. All right, we get the Dynamite debut of Hook.
Yes.
Send Hook up against Anthony Henry. Obviously, Hook's dominating for just a few seconds. Danhausen tries to curse him. No luck there. Hook locks in on a Taz submission. Chokehold gets the win, and then Danhausen gets on the mic in the ring and gets physical with the pointer finger. He says, "You will fight, Danhausen." Alfred, you have Hook, who is this. Good God, I wish I looked like him and had his swagger at 21 or whatever the hell he is. You have Hook, this organic heel. Do you like having this first feud be with the comedy act, the very over comedy act in Danhausen? Do you like this creativity, or is this, or are we getting a little bit too goofy?
No, I love it. I think this is a fine idea. I think the people vote too, and the people went nuts when Danhausen said he wanted to challenge Hook to a match. And that goes a long way in telling whether or not this is the right decision. And I think even though there's goofiness here, there is an irony with why people love Hook. It is that he's being booked into a superstar. It's Goldberg, but for left-handers. You know what I mean? He's like he's just like an offshoot. He's like a Gentile Goldberg, where it's like, yeah, we're going to take him serious as a monster, but there's like a tee-hee to it. And this serves that perfectly, tickles it perfectly. So I love this.
Goldberg for left-handers.
For left-handers. It's, it's irony. It's Goldberg for hipsters,
Oh my God. That's a new way to put it. I was entertained by this. Hook is a pleasant surprise. He's kind of this random, for many months when Team Taz was featured regularly, we saw him just in the hoodie, and he was just kind of the silent in the back. He was the greenhorn. We knew that. And then you and I talked about it. Then they started just kind of letting Rampage kind of become his show. That's where he just has owned things for the last 4 to 6 months, and he's just gotten over. He doesn't speak. Yeah. I plugged the thing with AEW with him and RJ City. He's just munching on chips. He doesn't speak. He's the cold-hearted, handsome devil. He looks like a free. He's like if Justin Bieber was a badass pro wrestler. That's kind of what he looks like.
This is what they need. That appeal that he has, particularly to women, and it's one of those things where enough men and ironic fans will like him. But if he's able to really appeal to women the way Jungle Boy, I think they think he can. That's going to be a big key in growing this AEW audience. I also love the fact that you see it so little that he was distracted. There was a distraction there, but he was hardly distracted. He was just unbothered. Usually baby faces, when they hear somebody else's music or have an excuse to be distracted, they'll just freeze in their tracks. But he's a pro about this.
Tommy says, you mean kind of like Dominic. I mean, well, you know, that is an interesting parallel. Dominic and Hook are kind of on the same, you know, dads are there trying to push for them. They're the young stubby. I mean, the Hook project has been, I think, far more successful.
It's a different level with Hook, man.
Yeah.
Hook's bodying Dominic in these streets.
Tina Miller, I'm left-handed. I will say that I do like Hook.
See?
You righties can keep Goldberg.
And she's a woman. That is the demographic. Left-handed women are about to. You're gonna get a lot of sore left hands. Okay.
Let the left hands help you with the manscaping.
Hell yeah!
Trying to find a segue there.
We can do another promo.
Blue Chew's not on tonight, so.
Oh. Hook's gonna need it. I mean, I see him in those strip clubs. You mess around those strippers, you're gonna need it.
Oh, Hook. I mean, I wouldn't want. I wouldn't leave my wife in a place around Hook. I wouldn't trust that guy. Not at all. All right, moving on. So if I'm Sammy Guevara, I wouldn't leave Ty Conti around Hook. Sammy and Ty out in the ring, and the people. I mean, what a story this is.
Yes.
Sammy Guevara, who went from being part of the foundational heel stable that's going to lead Dynamite in the inner circle from when Dynamite launched in 2019, gets out of all that, becomes this baby face, this organic baby face, and then through the world of social media and just real life business being out there, rightly or wrongly, his relationship and flaunting of sex with Ty Conti has just turned everybody against. You know, there's that old classic thing of to be successful in pro wrestling, you know, if you're the guy, right, you want to be, every guy wants to be you, every girl wants to be with you, and he has just flipped that on its side here. Sammy and Ty cutting a promo. They get interrupted by Scorpio Sky, Ethan Page, and Dan Lambert. Dan Lambert basically says, look, you either give Sky his rematch or my boys are going to come down there and they're going to give you the pounding that your girlfriend dreams of. Sammy says he'll give Sky the rematch only if he also can get the mixed tag. They end up hitting Sammy's music. I have a feeling this segment was rushed for time. So them plus the commentators are trying to get all the stories told here. But what I think I grabbed out of this is next week or soon, Sammy and Sky are going to have a ladder match. But then also in the future, Sammy and Ty are going to have a mixed tag against Paige Van Zant and either Scorpio Sky or Ethan Page. So that's where we're at now. Is you have Sammy and Ty, who were set out originally to be the babyface couple. People are turning on them, but they're not calling an audible. Tony Khan's not. He's still having the very heelish Dan Lambert and crew come out and run them down. So this is like nobody's likable in any of this.
Right. Well, no, I think they did make that switch. I think they immediately, in fact, tonight, I don't really think it was that slow of a burn because prior to this segment, they had Scorpio Sky with Frankie Kazarian, and they just had the most babyface interaction. Like, hey, man, let me have this shot, and then I'll give you the first one. And then when they had this, they cut to Sammy Guevara. He's in his heel jacket, man. Before he even opened his mouth, he's in the furry cloth, and he's cutting the promo that you're talking about in terms of you're just mad that I have a hot girlfriend. And maybe that's low-hanging fruit, but that's because it's absolutely true. These people always needed a reason to hate Sammy Guevara, who has a punchable face, who does come off as like the pretty boy who you would want to fight in high school. Now that he has his hot girlfriend, yes, there's all the drama with his real life fiance. That just happens to be one of any millions of reasons that somebody would have come up to as to why they hate these two. Real life
former fiance.
Yes, real life. Exactly. The fact that, listen, you never want to wish that there's all this negativity. I really do think that there is an ugly, toxic element to this. But this is best case scenario in terms of a wrestling promotion that needs to create a character and a star. I think both Sammy and Ty are going to become huge stars because there's such a close real life connection to what they're doing. It's really going to create that visceral feeling that often is hard to create in pro wrestling.
Yeah. Shade Black says AEW is slow tonight. Scorpio is a face now, though.
Yeah, just immediately out of nowhere. And listen, to your point, the way you covered that is typical of how he's been booked in the storyline, where he comes off often, not to a fault of his own, I don't think, but because there's so many moving parts around him, I think he's being submerged beneath that, to where when he was a TNT champion, Dan Lambert's your co-champion, Ethan Page is cutting pretty fiery, really talented promos and whatnot, and he's just snapping his fingers, and now he's being booked alongside this mixed tag team match, who is going to take a precedent over it, and I think a lot of people weren't really aware that there's going to be a ladder match next week.
Yeah, and that came from the commentators. I think that had to say like, "Oh, it's gonna be a ladder match," so I'm sure it was being fed to them that didn't get out by the talent. Again, I think they got pushed for time. We at this point we're coming up on 9:30 Eastern time. We still had the very important Britt Baker hometown match to have, plus then the main event, the coffin match, which we'll get to. All right, we'll do this one's a kind of a big buffet of things here. Sean Wiley, big super chat. Thank you, Sean.
Hell yeah.
He says, number 1, Justin Alfred, what is the end game for Wardlow and MJF? Number 2, Ethan Page is so wasted. I like to see him in the Blackpool Combat Club. Number 3, Hook in the House of Black. I like that idea. Number 4, Britt versus Jade will be fierce. All right, well, let's go one by one here. Alfred, I mean, endgame Wardlow and MJF. Again, I think it's a some kind of confinement match at Double or Nothing. Cage handcuffed each other, a strap match, something where MJF cannot get away from Wardlow. That's your. This is a match you make people pay for. It's a pay-per-view match, right?
Yes, and I think they're going to have multiple matches. I do think that MJF is going to find some shady way, maybe even invoking his contract to win the first match, and then I think it'll build to Wardlow beating MJF in the middle of the ring. Which is very rare. MJF almost never loses, and I think that win that they build to for Wardlow is going to launch him into superstar.
Right, yeah, and so you're right. The contract somewhere in there has to be the freedom,
yes,
of the contract. So that's number Ethan Page wasted. Like seeing in the no, he's Ethan Page. I don't think is Blackpool Combat.
Not at all. Not that vibe at all. I love how he dresses. I may or may not have bitten his style a couple times this summer with the Hawaiian. Although I was wearing floral shirts before him, but he's got the punch stuff going on. He's got all that stuff. So I think his swag, he really needs a heel run of his own. He's one of those guys who's very talented, who they understand he's talented. They understand there's a market for him because there's a lot of big fans of Ethan Page in WWE. And when he gets those little chances to talk, you see it.
Yeah. Again, Hook and House of Black. No, that doesn't fit at all. Hook is. Yeah. House of Black is, dressed in all black. The gothic, the riddle and rhyme. It works for the three that are doing it so far. But no, you don't want to hide Hook's face. Again, this guy's got a head of hair that I'd pay for. He's got the looks. He's got the body. He's young. He's mysterious. He's got the tough guy persona because of who his dad is. Hook. He's one of the few guys that right now needs to be kind of by him. I kind of like that. I don't see Team Taz flanking him right now. I like kind of him being on an island of his own. And Britt versus Jade will be fierce. Yeah, that's the inevitable. I got to think that's what they built to September, and we'll get in here to Britt here in a second. I got to have
some bars for Jade tonight.
Yeah, she did. So all right, let's go and jump into that. Sean, thanks very much for all the questions there. Yeah, so Britt comes out tonight. She has her match against Danielle Camella, obviously a former WWE talent briefly. Also noted on commentary, she has got some cheerleading and dancing background in professional sports. Obviously, Britt's going to get the win. She's out there with Najee Harris. Had a great rookie running back season with Pittsburgh. Out there with Pat Fryermuth.
Two league winners. 2 fantasy football league winners.
Big tight end Pat Fryermuth. Britt's going to get the assist from the glove getting handed to her from Fryermuth, so she does a lockjaw with that. Then proceeds to cut a promo, and she, this is just kind of what just kind of fits the whole baddest bitch on the block thing that she does, and she does it on Twitter too. She starts off by, and mind you, she's been off TV for weeks. She kind of boycotted being on TV since losing to Thunder Rosa until she was going to be in Pittsburgh. And she starts out her promo with saying, first off, isn't it nice to have somebody who can talk on the microphone, a woman? And then she goes, boy, haven't we seen that this AEW women's division is just a disaster without me? Runs down Ruby Soho, runs down Jade Cargill and the baddies. I mean, as much of a shoot feel as you can get. This feels like they are just doing, again, MJF and Wardlow, money match. It feels like they're planting long-term seeds for what could just be huge money with Jade Cargill and Britt Baker whenever the two get in each other's faces.
Yeah, and they need to continue to do it at the same pace, maybe a little quicker, but I'm fine with a year from now, Jade and Britt Baker. I think that's a match that you don't have to rush. There's 2 different divisions. They could both build themselves up as stars in the division. And one time down the road, maybe when Jade gets to 99, to get to 100, Britt Baker, it has to be one of those milestone numbers. I think 99-0 Jade versus Britt Baker. Not I think, I know it should main event a pay-per-view. And I think that would be a great story. They've been going at each other on Twitter, which, again, makes it seem kind of like a shoot. And I like what she had to say. Britt was a little blown up, I will say, especially early on. But you can't hold it against her because she's been on for several weeks, Looks great in the ring in a match against the artist formerly known as Vanessa Bourne, I believe it was. But yeah. I really like this, and I liked invoking the Steelers in this crowd.
Yeah, easy, cheap hometown pop. Big bit here. Obviously, again, Britt, again, my local plug, my local cheap plug of IWC Wrestling. She trained right here with us, trained in our wrestling school. Great to see her doing all this. I can remember her very first show. We were in White Oak, Pennsylvania.
Oh, yeah.
Booming White Oak, Pennsylvania. That's where we were. So that was her first match. All right, so very good stuff there. All right, main event time. Coffin match. Andrade versus Darby Allin. Immediately, Darby Allin outnumbered. He's trying to use a skateboard, but we got the Blade out there. We got Private Party. But then as they all are fighting, they get into the crowd. Sting, a fan, it seems, pulls up the plastic Sting mask, only to reveal that that's the real man they call Sting. All parties fighting through the crowd. Sting's going to get up on the bleachers. He's going to do a dive. Sting has done more dives from high places in his AEW career than he did in his 30-year career prior. This is insane.
He's developing into the master of taking the safe bump that looks insane because, it is a pretty crazy bump to take from the balcony, but so many people stand down there to catch him. And then he takes those crazy table bumps, but there's so many tables that it's really probably not hurting him as much as going through one table. But, and people pop for it. I think they're doing a good job with a less is more approach with Sting.
Yeah. So we continue. Eventually, Darby and Andrade, they fight back to the ringside area. We come to see as they start struggling with the coffin that the coffin, the lid, the inside of the lid is lined with thumbtacks. So they try to play a little psychology with that, working pressure onto each other with that. Darby even trying to stop himself from getting slammed in the coffin, which would, of course, make him the loser. So he's sacrificing his forearm, putting his forearm up against the thumbtacks to force the lid to stay open. Darby, gets Andrade into the coffin just as it looks like he's going to try to close the lid. Jose, the assistant, comes out, rips his shirt off. He's going to be the one that's going to take the back bump onto the thumbtacks. And ultimately, Darby's going to get Andrade in, close the lid, gets the win. It's interesting. And Seven Clown says, "What about the Dollar Tree coffin?" Coffin. I have to admit, and this is where I'm going to get a lot of, the AEW tribalists are going to beat me up on this. It is hard for me to watch any concept of a coffin match and anything else other than WWE that doesn't have the Undertaker. We're training for 30 years. The Undertaker is the gimmick with coffin matches, so it is a little step out of the box to accept a coffin, any other coffin that's not Undertaker and traditional coffin matches. I didn't hate this. I will kind of agree with that comment. The coffin did look a little, it wasn't the most sophisticated or sturdy, but I guess it did the job. And this was the main event.
Yeah, and then you could have spots where there are bumps on the coffins, which I think is fine as long as you're using a gimmick coffin. So I don't have a problem with it from that standpoint. And I do think they're trying to appropriate the term coffin instead of casket so that they could make it Darby's own. It does fit his vibe, and he is setting himself up to be compared to The Undertaker, but I do think that Darby Allin's brand of using this coffin, especially where he kind of bumps onto it and tries a coffin drop onto it, I do think it's interesting. I think these two have great chemistry. I thought this was another good match between them, but I do prefer it to be less of the plunder and more of the high-paced lucha style that they were doing for the match on Rampage where they had the triple threat, and then this one, I think, or the one before this one, I thought were great matches. And this was just pretty good, I think.
Yeah, and you're right about the wording. Obviously, coffin drop is it's Darby's finisher, so it does all play into that. Yeah, good. And then we should note, Darby and Sting, they're standing tall in celebration of Darby's victory. The Hardys come out and they do some delete on the stage, so kind of again signaling and teasing to an eventual tag match, another tag match between the Hardys up against just Darby and Sting. So, really a packed Dynamite. So much came out of it, and then I'm not even gonna go through it all. You can go to Wrestling Inc. for all of it. Excalibur several times. He's the guy on the 3-man commentary booth. He's the guy that's always getting the promotional stuff in or what's coming up on the future shows. He was going a mile a minute of what's coming up on Rampage, what's coming up on Dynamite, trying to get it all in. Again, go to Wrestling Inc. They have everything documented there, but there is so much going on with AEW that is just firing in all cylinders with their, maximum size roster than ever. Overall, though, a lot on paper going into this. Did this Dynamite disappoint, or do you walk away happy on 420 with it?
I thought it was okay. I think 420 helped, but it was okay. It wasn't the best Dynamite. I think there's a high standard that's been established, and this fell below it. But I do think they're doing a good job, to your point, promoting big events that they have coming up, which is going to be the priority. And they're just going to have to make do with these NBA playoffs, which is going to absolutely crush AEW. And it's going to, their numbers, I think, are going to remain near 100 or a million. I just think it's going to be on the lower end. And I think they realize that. So they're just going to kind of crawl before they walk. And they're telling stories. I think it's fine in terms of booking this product and booking their matches. They're doing a good job of that.
Yeah, one of the stories next week and another Owen Hart qualifier, Dax versus Cash, FTR partners going against each other. As Keith Robinson notes, very interested in that. Is that where we do they come at odds? Is that where a Bret Hart mediation comes in to get these guys back on track? A lot of speculation. That's a very interesting choice here to have these tag team partners go up against each other. But I saw a lot of praise on social media for it.
Yeah, I could definitely see this being where they bring in Bret Hart. I think that'd be a good way to cleanse the palate and come up with a way for them to come back together. So, yeah, I'd love to see Bret Hart on the show.
Yeah, they're in Philly next week, in Philadelphia. So we'll see if what the Philadelphia ECW crowd how they react to them. All right, that was AEW Dynamite plus a lot of other news headlines. Again, more headlines on WrestlingInc.com around the clock, 24/7. Make sure you subscribe to Wrestling Inc. Of course, YouTube, Twitch, Periscope, Facebook. We were on it all tonight. We appreciate everybody. Make sure you hit subscribe. Tell a friend. Just tell one friend, and they'll tell somebody. Does great stuff. Of course, comments, super chats, always appreciated. For what's coming up on, you got Forbes, you got your pro wrestling bits. What's going on?
Absolutely. Just dropped a new bit today on Scorpio Sky. Very timely. And his loss of the TNT Championship, unfortunately, the worst TNT champion they've ever booked. But listen, he's got another chance for this ladder match. Go on Forbes for coverage of AEW Dynamite and also SmackDown this weekend.
Very good, very good. Again, this is Nasty. I'm at Justin LaBar. Again, if you're in the Pittsburgh, Western PA region and want to get there April 30th, your chance for a meet and greet and to see in action. So not just meet and greet, but also in action, the Hardy Boys, Eric Rowan, Fandango, who's retiring soon. So one of his last matches he's going to have. Thunder Rosa. It's going to be a hell of a show. Ross Draver Ice Gardens, just about 25, 30 minutes outside of downtown Pittsburgh. April 30th. If you want to get tickets, hit me up on Twitter or go to iwcwrestling.com. Whatever, we'll get you directed there. April 30th can be a fun Saturday. So that show going on. I'll be on Busted Open Friday morning, as always, with Dave LaGreca and Mark Henry. Like, share, subscribe, do what you got to do. Big thanks to Manscaped. Big thanks to HelloFresh. Alfred and I will be back next Wednesday for more post AEW Dynamite. Take care. Be good. Smoke them if you got them.